Well, thank you for a full house. You heard we were taking up an offering tonight. I'm glad we have so many here. But if you would join me in our pledge to our flag, and my good friend Jay Krause is going to offer our prayer tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Travis Spann was supposed to do this tonight, but he wasn't feeling well. He texted me this morning, and I had no idea such a crowd showed up. I'm going to pray a really short prayer because I want to tell you just a real quick story. My great-grandfather sent my grandfather here to Wilmore in 1919. And he was a builder in Greensboro, knew everybody in the Christian world. He was so impressed with what was happening to Asbury. That's where he sent his son. On his deathbed, he said, "Will you get all of my children a Christian education?" He had 8 brothers and sisters, so my grandfather bought a house in Wilmore, moved everybody here, and that's why there's so many Krauses here, for good or bad. Every one of them has had some kind of a love-hate relationship with this place. My father grew up here, and they retired. I did not have a good relationship with this place. And about 30 years ago, I put it in the rearview mirror and was never planning to turn around. 5 years ago, my mother, who lives here, got COVID, thought she was going to die, came back to help her. And in that process, basically God said to me, "I want you to stay here and care for her." I said, "I'll do that. But my bags will be packed, and when we put her in the cemetery out there, I will be on a train, a bus, a tobacco wagon, anything, leaving town." 2 years ago, I had an encounter with God, and He told me His plans and His purposes for this city. I was so arrested by it. I said, "I'm in." And when my mother goes to glory, I'll stay right here because I want to be a part of what God is doing in this town, with this council, and the institutions here that everybody's trying to figure out how to work together with. So it's a real honor to be here. And I'm really grateful to God that He removed a hard heart towards this place and people here and put His love in me for each one of you and this precious little piece of real estate called Wilmore, Kentucky.
Amen.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this gathering. I thank you that in a country where we really don't honor prayer and want your presence in our midst, in this little town, we're still praying, we're still believing, and we're still grateful for all you do for us every day. I thank you for each individual, the ones entrusted with authority to help this town work together. And Lord, you said, if you don't build it, the laborers are in vain. We submit ourselves to you to labor with you. You said if you don't guard it and watch it, the watchmen watch in vain. So I thank you that you're with this group, you're with this town to build and to watch and to bring about a good future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Jay, I'm glad you came back. Our council has had the minutes of December 15 circulated to you. Are there any corrections to be noted? Second. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor of approval, please indicate by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Second thing we are doing tonight is recognizing a couple of businesses. And I've asked the council, we're beginning to do this with each council member taking a business to recognize it. And thank you for being here and for what you mean as a business to this town. One story. If Jay got to tell a story and pray, I will. In 1876, this little town started in a lawsuit. Literally. It was named Scott Station, and some prize tenants got hit by the train, and Mr. Scott sued the railroad, and the railroad retaliated by changing the name to Wilmore for another landowner, J.R. Wilmore. 14 years goes by. John Wesley Hughes rides the train that's here through the track, stops here, gets off, talks to the Wilmore Methodist Church pastor and 4 business people. There was 4 businesses then. If you'll raise $1,600, I'll come back and build a school. You got 1 week. 1 week later, he came back, $1,600 had been raised. He built the little white building that's now up on the campus, moved there in 1951. It was up on Maple Street, what we know as Maple Street in those days. In 1909, it all burned down. Asbury was where the Farmers Bank, all up in there. $16,000 was raised by the businesses of Wilmore to build it again. So whether Asbury built Wilmore or Wilmore built Asbury, you can decipher that. But either way, we're intertwined and we're intermingled. And your family brought probably the largest business base to our town that we had known at that time, and built almost all those buildings up there at Asbury. If it's named Johnson or Trustees or whatever, it was built by him. If it's at the seminary, student center, etc., it was built by the Krause family. So we owe a great debt to those families that came here and staked out a claim in this town. So that's my story. We have 2 council tonight that's going to appreciate business. Whoever wants to go.
If I could ask Cameron and Erica to come up.
Where you want me, Jim?
Right beside me, brother. No, I want Erica beside me.
Good call, Jim.
Well, part of the reason Wilmore is special is because of special people like Cameron and Erica. They've taken an interest in Wilmore and built, had several businesses. I have a little lip I'm supposed to read, so I better get on a script. Vault 42 is an event room located at 322 East Main Street in Wilmore. It offers space for hosting intimate gatherings, workshops, and more. The Vault 42 name and style are inspired by the history of our Wilmore Deposit Bank building, dating back to early 1900s. As small business owners, Cameron and Erica love to practice the art of hospitality and felt the call to provide a space to do that in our beloved town. Through their venue, they offer space for hosting small baby showers, wedding showers, birthday parties, business meetings, art workshops, and many other gatherings. On hand, they have functional decor with a vintage edge, tables and chairs for your guests, a kitchenette for serving and preparing food, as well as a small selection of servingware and event decor for all included. Well, not doing very well. Okay, well, servingware and event decor, all included for the rental rate of $40 an hour. They are looking forward to all events they will host in 2026, which is the official 2nd year of hosting in Vault 42. For information, please visit their website, vault42.events. I have a little key from the mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to ask Randy and April Hardman to come up. So Randy and April started and owned Drinklings, what people know. Great coffee shop, so glad that they're here in Wilmore. And this was written and put out in the December newsletter, but they couldn't make it, so they're here now, which is why we're doubling up. Here's what was written. Drinklings started in 2016 as part of the Wilmore Arts and Crafts Festival, selling coffee and mugs online and at Fitch's IGA and at local events. In 2019, Drinklings launched a third space coffee shop and kicked off Wilmore's historical revitalization. In 2021, Drinklings purchased the property at 100 Rice House and split up its operations between a 1940s style coffee house inspired by the Oxford Inklings and its production arm, which supplies fresh roasted, ethically sourced, artisan crafted beans to homes and businesses across the country. Drinklings has 3 times won the People's Choice Award for Lexington Cold Brew Fest, and in 2025 won Best of Lexington Coffee House. You can shop locally or buy their beans online at www.drinklings.coffee. I'm super proud of Drinklings. I drink their coffee, and I think they make Wilmore proud, and just thank you all for doing such a great job. Here's the key to the city.
We got one for the young man.
Oh.
There you go, look this way. First item of new business is Resolution 2026-1, a resolution authorizing the City of Wilmore to apply for financial assistance through the Infrastructure Revolving Fund, known as Fund B, State Revolving Loan Program, and designated the mayor as the official project representative. You have a copy of that before you, if you would so move to authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of the council.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Is this funding we've had in the past and what is it doing for?
This is the extra money that we need to finish the project on Lexington Avenue and Main Street that we're gonna borrow from KIA because the project was $200,000.
The sidewalk project?
No, what we know is the sewer line on Linden.
Gotcha.
So this is the item we discussed at the last meeting when the engineers told us we had to come up with more money for that project. The bids came in higher.
Which is why we're taking an offer.
Which is why they offered, we only had $200,000 for that project. So yes, that's what that's for. So do we have a motion?
Yes.
We did. And
And
a
a
second,
second.
and a discussion, any other discussion? Question, all in favor, please indicate by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, one more item, and then we move, well, one more short item, I hope. An ordinance amending the City of Wilmore zoning ordinance section 1.8 related to short-term rentals. We need a second reading. We did a first reading at the last meeting. Christopher Montgomery, Deputy Director, Interim Director, Wilmore Joint Planning Commission. You gave a first reading on December the 15th. So it calls for 2 readings since it's an ordinance.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. Discussion? Question? All in favor, please indicate by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next item is request to submit a TAP grant for the final design of Kentucky 29 Trail. Scott Thompson is here. Mr. Scott, how you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Come in. You're welcome. You and Andy, however you want to do this.
I think I'll just start the presentation, then call Scott up when it's time.
Okay.
Get his feedback. I think it's great that we got to honor Cameron Miller and the Hardmans today. They're just an exceptional businesses in our town, and it's interesting how it was Erica and Cameron who renovated the first location for drink lanes, and just to see the partnerships of businesses in our towns, and these two have been anchors in just really recent years, which is exciting to see what could happen in a short amount of years. I'm gonna call on my wife Katie to run the PowerPoint for me. And I want to begin by just thanking the mayor and the council for considering this issue, this proposal that I'm presenting on since our December 15 meeting. I know that all of you have been seriously researching this, recognizing some obstacles, considering and weighing the benefits. I've spoken to a few of you, and I know that you are talking to other folks, and even doing that during the holidays. Recognizes how much you take this seriously and are considering whether this is the time to apply for TAP funding to complete the 1 mile link, as well as improve other pathway here in town to get us to what is being called the Central Kentucky Trail System. Almost 40 miles of pathway that would connect us to Georgetown to the north and across the county to the east. A few of you have maps that show that. The council members, you guys also have maps on that. I'm hoping that this presentation, as well as Scott's input and his ability to be the expert in the room and answer the hard questions, will further your conviction that this is an important and valuable trail to make happen. Honestly, I recognize it's doubtful it will pass tonight because of some obstacles that you've seen or some concerns that you may have. That being said, I'm still hopeful that it would pass tonight. At the very least, I hope that you'll consider it, and it would, if it doesn't pass tonight, prepare us for the next time that federal funds are available for this purpose. So in summary, kind of what I'm looking for and asking for is the city to apply for Transportation Alternative Program funding. It's federal funding designated for alternative transportation in order to create a design for a pathway from right here, Wilmore, potentially even a trailhead at this location, to the current trailhead at the Y intersection. And that's viewed in the map there, and then from there, we'd be connecting to many miles from there. That design is just a design. It's not a trail. There's no cost to apply, and we may or may not get the funding. We would find out about funding sometime next year, and it would be on the budget for 26-27. With this federal funding, the local government is responsible for 20% of the costs for the final design and for the completion of the project, which has multiple stages. We'd probably do it in 3 stages, starting in Wilmore, moving north towards the Y intersection. For every dollar we spend with these funds, the federal government adds $4. So our money is being multiplied in order to see a very professional 88 standards, all those kind of things. If you've been on the Legacy Trail, it would be something of that standard.
Hey, Boo,
Yes.
tell me when you want me to advance.
So I'm gonna introduce Scott in a minute, and Scott has been informing and being involved with this, and he was the one that notified us saying, hey, there's TAP funds available. Your deadline is January 19th to put that application in. And the other aspect of Scott is that he's the senior transportation planner at the Lexington-Fayette Urban County Government. He does all things transportation and knows how roads are built, or at least who to call to get those built, or how to make traffic safe, and also has a special focus on bicycle, pedestrian movement and transportation. I got to know Scott by joining in with the MPO BPAC meetings. So the there's a Fayette-Jesmond Metropolitan Planning Organization that has a bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. So there's a lot of words and letters in that. And so I've been attending those meetings to learn more about this. And in conversations with Scott, he encouraged us in Wilmore to begin our own chapter and just do Wilmore BPAC. And so we've had a handful of folks meeting about quarterly to talk about both this pathway as well as other potential pathways. Some that are a little bit more low-hanging fruits, like just a connector path from the end of Bellevue that gets us into the Talbot subdivision, and other things like that, or maybe a bike event that we've done, or a bike to school event. So he's here to really answer the hard questions, and so I'm going to call him up when we get to the hard questions. Next, I want to just review the map that you have. So going from Wilmore and then across the county, you'll notice that there is a purple line along the corridor that we have the option to ask for TAP funds for. That line is there because the state recognized this as a likely corridor for a future trail. The state recognizes this so much that they paid $100,000 last year to have a feasibility study. I don't know how much Wilmore even had to ask for that, and they coordinated with the Lexington-Fayette government to get that feasibility study done. That can be seen online. And then the pathway would continue east, stay on that last slide, east across the county, connecting 5 schools, both high schools, west and east, both middle schools, and Rosenwald, Dunbar Elementary School. Is that the one that's on that corridor? So what is in purple is proposed. What is in green is either existing or funded. Okay, so I was chatting with David West last week. He said that they've been working on that pathway for 12 years. I was actually in some meetings with engineers about that long ago as they began planning for it. I, as a realtor, have a client who owns land on that corridor. The easement in the front yard has already been purchased. So it's moving forward, and it could happen. It's likely to happen in a matter of years. So then the next section is north on the existing 5-mile trail. Raise your hand if you've gone on the 5-mile pathway that goes along 68, ridden a bike, walked it. We see folks parking there all of the time. And that trailhead will continue to get usage. That currently ends just south of Southland Church. And you can span to the next one, Katie, and it will then go east along Brannon Crossing Road. That is green because it's already been funded. It's not existing if you don't see it. It will take us all the way into the Brannon Crossing area as well as Veterans Park. From Veterans Park, it will go north past the UK Arboretum, and you can scroll to the next, Katie, across UK campus into downtown. And then scroll again, it will continue on the Legacy Trail. Raise your hand if you've ridden or walked in the Legacy Trail. That is wonderful to go that far without having to deal with traffic, just to get in a happy zone. And it's so much of it is beautiful farmland and other spaces there. You see parks along the way. And then the next slide, this is the next level of proposed trail that takes you all the way into Georgetown. So imagine if you could bicycle from right here to Georgetown. Imagine if your kids' running teams could be running between campuses, or that, you know, your junior and high school's up for bicycling to school from here. Imagine just being able to get on a path and just kind of unwind, walk, and not worry about cars. So the proposal is to apply for these funds, and it would be a shovel-ready design for a 2.5 mile trail from Wilmore to the Y section. As I said, it's just 1 mile length that we don't have a full easement on and any pathway on. In addition, a trailhead of some sort in Wilmore might be a shelter, sitting area, maybe some bike minis, I've seen those, or water, or just things that we see at other trailheads. And as far as closer to Wilmore, because we'd be focusing first, starting in Wilmore. There's some unknowns as we get close to the Y, so it makes the most sense to focus on improving what is here and focusing on the Wilmore location. This will, in the end, be the terminus of this 40-mile pathway, or the starting point. And so we want people to not turn around at the Y intersection as they're biking our way. We want them to come here and enjoy the businesses and activities here in Wilmore. So the improvement would likely be trailhead plus increased right-of-way safety for pedestrians along North Lexington. As you know, that corridor is kind of tight if you were to bicycle it. In addition, improving the existing pathway from Cowles Village to Veterans Park, which is cracking and is just, you don't see cyclists on it much. It's a little narrow, it's a little, it's aged, and it needs improvement, and federal dollars can help us do that. A shovel-ready design is basically what is needed to give to the contractors that would then look at purchasing the right-of-way, moving utilities, and doing the construction. When state and federal dollars are available, when they need to be passing money to a project, they want a shovel-ready design. So we need to get there at some point to have this design. It's just the next step. Trail values, connecting us to the Central Kentucky Trail System, walking, running, cycling, all your recreational activities that path would involve. Health, better health. Kentucky, as my wife, who's in public health, would say, has a lot of issues with obesity and physical health and just getting us moving. Chances are one of your New Year's resolutions was moving. So fitness and quality of life, tourism and economic development. I'd love to have Scott, when he's up here, just say a little bit of what he's seen, because there's statistics on how much economic impact there is for when pathways come to your town. And if you've ever been on a pathway in other states, you probably see a lot of business shops and things going on around there. I was chatting with Russ Meyer, who is a Wilmore resident, was previously the mayor of Nicholasville and the director of of state parks. He said this ticks all the boxes for economic development in Wilmore and for the value of a trail system that connects across the county. Finally, a safe path to schools and to neighborhoods. A lot of us, whether you are out riding your bike or walking or just driving your car and you see someone on the road and worry about them, this would provide safety. We are known for as a safe city, and we see that as a value. I'd like us to see that as a value for safe walking as well, safe bicycling. People want this trail. You guys many of you came because Brian and I probably shot a text and an email to you, and it was kind of short notice, but it's because many of you have been asking, what's the status of the trail to the Y? Tonight we're gonna learn about where the status of the trail to the Y is, and it might be, we have to wait, and this is what we know. But I want us as a council and a community to be thinking about how can we see this as a reality for our town and for our children. The state wants this trail. I mentioned they spent $100,000 on a feasibility study. It's likely that if we get the next stage after final design, they would probably pitch in on future stages that are needed, because it's not, I've heard it posed that it's about $1 million a mile. This one may cost, is projected to be more than that. It's not a cheap thing to do. It's like building a road. But the state's invested in this. Lexington wants this trail. Scott drove down from Lexington, and I'm in Lexington meetings, and there are people up there that have been eyeing this pathway. The county wants this trail. David West is a fan of this trail. And as you folks have said, and I know that you want this trail. I know that there's concerns about whether or not now is the time to ask for this trail, but it is something that's desired. Next slide. Time for questions. I've gotten you guys excited about a potential trail, and yet there are questions on it, and there are obstacles, and I'd like Scott to answer some of those questions for the council, and the council can also add in those questions. I know some of you council members have already reached out to Scott this last week, so Scott, come on up.
So you just want me to run down these?
Yeah, did I get your introduction right?
That was close enough.
How much of this pathway, the Central Kentucky Trail System, have you been a part of?
Gosh. I mean, maybe 5-10% of it at this point. This is, so for those of you that aren't familiar, so let me just do a little cleanup on some of that.
Please.
I'm employed by the Lexington Area MPO, or the Federal Transportation Agency. We do federal transportation planning for Fayette and Jessamine counties, long range transportation for road, bike, train, air, all that good stuff. Jessamine County has been involved in the MPO probably for almost 20 years at this point, I think, if not more. And what we do is we help put federal transportation dollars that are dedicated to this area as well towards projects through a public input process as to what's important. There's representatives on our board from Wilmore, the city, the mayor of Nicholasville, the county judge executive of Jessamine County, and then several Fayette County representatives, our mayor, several council members. It also allows us, all these communities, access to competitive grant dollars that are given to the state through the federal process, and then some other grants that we've done in Fayette County that are directly from the federal government. And so what we do is we bring those opportunities to the table. Well, one, we do the long range planning, right? And this regional trails are part of that long range planning. And then when federal dollars become available, we let municipalities know. And so when this TAP cycle came open, which it hadn't been open for a couple of years, we knew that this trail had a feasibility study, the next phase of design. And so that's when we reached out to some folks here that have been involved with the DPAC and said, hey, if you are interested in that, take this to council and the mayor and see if they're wanting to move forwards. So that's kind of the short part of that. longer vision for the trail. Obviously, we have the Legacy Trail in Lexington that runs, that's intended to run all the way to Georgetown. Georgetown's actually in a construction phase. I think they're letting that for construction sometime maybe this spring to build the next section into Georgetown, or a large piece of that. Obviously, this trail has been identified for quite some time when the state came in to do improvements as a part of the 68 corridor. The ask was to build as much trail as they could as a part of that project. The state came in and said, we're gonna redo West Brandon Road from Nicholasville to Jessamine County. We said, hey, that's our connection from east to west. We wanna get into the back part of Fayette County through Veterans Park. You know, can we make sure that that happens there? So you'll see something similar to what you see on 68. There'll be some shared use path, but there'll also be some limited access road for some of those property owners that will serve as the trail as well. And again, the state is behind it because they helped us get Legacy Trail built, right? That was something that came with the World Equestrian Games. And when we talk about what a shovel-ready project looks like and how this works, you know, we do a lot of things, and we start these processes through, you know, planning input, then through a feasibility study, and then through that design process. Once that design is there, that's when you can start going after funding for right-of-way, utility relocations, and then that final construction piece. But we never know what's gonna come down the pipeline as far as funding goes. It changes at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. And a good example for Legacy, the vision for that started from Jay McCord, and I think some of y'all may even know who that is, of this healthway that they wanted to build in Lexington.
His wife works at Asbury.
Yeah, and make this trail connection. And so it went through its paces, and then they finally got some design on the page, and then we started doing things, and then all of a sudden the World Equestrian Games were announced that they were coming to the Kentucky Horse Park. And so the state was looking for legacy projects to fund as a part of that process. And so we applied for that funding and were able to get it built largely at no cost to Fayette County. There was some cost on different parts and pieces of it. There were some phases that we had to complete after the fact. But the point is the state took that over and ran with it because, you know, that, and who would have, you know, we didn't know that was going to be an opportunity. So I think that's a little bit about why this next step is important. At some point to get it into a final design, which allows it to be essentially ready for right-of-way acquisition, as well as utility relocations and then construction, because you just don't know what type of federal funding is going to come out. We also find that a lot of the federal funding is looking for projects that can be built while the people who are letting those funds available are in office. And so that's why you hear that term shovel-ready a lot, because they know it takes time to build projects. And so from, you know, beginning from design to construction is generally about 3 years just for right-of-way utilities. And so, you know, it's important to have that design in place to get to move that forward. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. This is about a $4 million project in today's dollars. We generally look for 10% of that in construction or in design. So that's $400,000. That will likely vary, but we shoot for what that 10% is, and then we put out that request if it's awarded for the consulting firm, and then we negotiate the scope of work and what that looks like. So 400,000 is that top end that we think would require for this project.
And for each of those numbers, the 400,000 is for the final design, which is what we would be applying for now. If we are funded, if we are approved, that would be what would be the next cost. However, federal funds cover 80% of that, so the local government would be required to pay $80,000.
Yeah, the max requirement for that is $80,000, and that generally comes out of, for design, you're a little bit constrained because you can't use like land or utility relocations for that match. We do use that sometimes for construction, but in the design phase, it is up to the local government to fund that. And it's a form of reimbursement, so basically the consultant bills one pays and then they get reimbursed. And you've done that. That feasibility study, I think, was done that way as well. And you all are familiar with grants. And I think you mentioned you all did some community block grants, other things, so you know how that process works.
And the question, the second is, what is the, what's the next steps after the design? I think you kind of talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it varies, right? I mean, like all projects, this is broken into 4 phases. The final design will identify the actual amount of right-of-way required to build the trail. Some of that is permanent right of way, some of that's easements or construction easements. And so, once we know what that looks like, we generally start looking at, how much of a chunk of right of way do we want to try to acquire as it relates to the cost of the construction of the trail. And so, right of way is generally the next phase. We go after right of way for a section, and then we move that section into utility locations and construction and so on and so forth. So each year you're trying to move a little piece of it forwards, and it varies here. There's some section that already has trail and right of way that may not change a whole lot. So, you know, again, that final design kind of irons that out. But generally, that's how we move things. They go from design to right of way to utility relocations and then into construction.
The feasibility study talked about this as starting at the Y and moving towards Wilmore. But if we were approved, could we switch that and focus on improving Wilmore and moving out towards the Y so that we have a bit more time to get things resolved out on towards the Y?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I think that the final design would kind of flush that out a little bit and determine, again, what's the will, you know, like what are the opportunities? Sometimes, you know, things move. So we do a lot of, I like to tell people this, we do a lot of planning. We have these giant lists of scored projects and we never follow them because there's always some opportunity that comes along and we move to this project because, you know, we've got some development coming in, we're able to maybe get some easements or, you know, there's just a variety of things that tend to change. There's a sewer project that's gonna allow us to do something in correlation with it. So, you know, it varies, but the final design will allow the community of Wilmore to evaluate that and determine how to best to move forward, but generally we do it that way. You could do it from in and out. I mean, that's, in hindsight, Lexington, I think, wish they would have done a lot more of that because we end up with we've got a lot of what we call kind of spaghetti on a map, you know, like there's little incomplete pieces of trail. We did a lot of that low-hanging fruit early on, and most of that was out around the city, but the largest area of walkable, bikeable is kind of in the city. And so going from in and out is generally a best practice when you're building a trail. And so, because it benefits the local community the most when you're doing that piece, right? If you build the first piece, then, you know, people can't get to it, right? So
I think you
again,
made
those are
the
things you
point
can
well
implement.
of the design the process changes often, depending on
It does, yeah.
changing of ownership or changing of a sewer project or whatever it might be. So the exact sequence is
Right.
up to what happens next and Wilmore's guidance on it. What if, and I think this is one of our biggest questions as a corporate council and the mayor in our hesitancies of moving forward with this application, and that is, what if an easement isn't granted? Does that shoot the whole project down and basically we just spent $80,000 and it can't be used towards, that final design can't be used because easement wasn't granted by a particular landowner in the route?
Sure. So the what if questions, right? So in my experience, we've had a lot of different trail alignments change as it relates to land acquisition. It just depends on who's constructing or building the project. The state, as you all know, will generally they go into right of way, they make offers, but they will condemn property. We in Fayette County, our local government does not condemn property. Y'all probably don't either. We don't see that much out of local governments. So what we do in those cases is we adapt. I mean, our town branch trail, we had to move and change. We couldn't get right of way that we were hoping to get. And so, you know, we had to adapt and change the trail alignment. You know, I think it's important as a part of the design process to reach out to all the property owners that are impacted first. Talk to them, find out what the appetite is for that before you start putting pen to paper. I mean, we've learned from that process in Fayette County, and we try to apply that across the MPO on other projects as well, so that you're not having to choose another alignment after the fact. So I think that's important for this project, would be to talk to landowners.
Are designers helping, would they be helping in those
Absolutely.
conversations?
Yeah, absolutely, that'd be a part of it with the local government, absolutely. Yeah.
Why should we apply now?
Well, when the grant cycle's open, it's been a couple of years, so generally when it's been a few years, more projects get awarded. We don't know the exact amount of money in the pot, but this is a competitive grant. There's a chance that you won't get it. You know, they're gonna be looking at statewide applications that come through the ads and through other local governments. Some people might have a bunch of projects ready to build that they might fund. Design's not super popular when it comes to TAP, but it is one way to fund it. We've been successful in getting it in Fayette County for a lot of projects, but again, it just depends on who's submitting and what the projects are. So we think that the pot of money's big. We think they're gonna empty it out. In the past, we've seen when state officials are, you know, in the last part of their term, they generally empty the coffers for these types of projects, and so, you know, kind of in that place right now. So it's probably a good time, but you never know. I mean, you know, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. We generally apply for 5 to 7 projects in Fayette County and get 2 or 3 when they have these cycles. And we apply for other, I say we, but the MPO applies with the Lexington Fayette County government for other larger grants as well that have come through, Safe Streets for All, and we've gotten Tiger grants and other larger grants for big trail projects.
You've said that you would be willing to write the grant on behalf of the city of Wilmore, but there's, you know, just what tasks would still be involved for the city, even just in this application process in the next couple of weeks?
Really just a few house cleaning things, like we need some the federal clearinghouse information, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, and the USAI number. It's really about it. You know, it's a new application this year. It's all digital format. So what we would do is we'd ask the city of Wilmore to open up an application and then just make me a contributor on that. And then that way we can work together to
And you
complete the
said,
application.
like, our finance person, like Lori Bell would probably.
Yeah, that's who we worked with on the feasibility study, and so she should be familiar with that stuff. So that's kind of how we would handle that. And we've done enough of these applications that we can it out pretty quickly.
What other questions does the council have, or the mayor have for Scott?
I've got a few. So, it's my understanding that we don't have any commitments for easements on either side of the road from the Veteran Center to the Y, is that correct?
I'm not aware of any, but that wouldn't be, we haven't gone through that process to ask for those yet.
So I guess the follow-up question to that is, if we don't have commitments, how do we do a final design, if we don't even know which side of the road the trail is gonna go on? And, well, so there.
Yeah,
that's
and
number
I
two.
answered this question.
Yes, you
didn't
did.
know. So
I just wanted
you're
to go
asking me
on
a
the
question
record.
you already asked me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're gonna, as a part of the, I say we, if this is awarded and we move to final design, we will have those conversations. And then, as I said in my email to you, if the temperature is better on one side than the other, we can pick that side. There's not saying we can't design on both sides.
So you're gonna draw a design, final design with 2 options?
You could do that. We've done that. We've had option A and option B. I mean, again, these are hypotheticals, right? We don't know. And until you move forwards and ask those questions of those property owners, it's really difficult to say how that would play out. And, you know, none of this happens overnight. I've seen all kinds of things happen over the course of projects. These are 10 to 15-year projects, and things change. And I can say I've seen that happen. Again, it's opportunities, right? And we've seen trails from beginning to fruition over 20-year periods, and there's all kinds of stuff that happens along the way. And so you could come up with an infinite amount of what ifs for this project, and I really believe that all outcomes are possible. I mean, it's possible that those landowners may donate those easements. It's equally possible that they would say not, never are we gonna do those easements. I mean, those are both possibilities. And I think that's true along all of these corridors, and we've run into both. And we've run into times where they're this way and then they turn this way. So I mean, again, you know, those kind of things are just things that you run into when you do these projects.
To follow up on Jim's question, how common is it for a municipality to write a final design without getting commitment to easement beforehand?
Oh, that we do that all the time, absolutely, yeah, I mean, you know, we're very careful early on not to show great alignments, because we wanna have conversations with property owners, and this is the time that you do it, before you design, right before you design a project. Because you're choosing an alignment, you're choosing a side, you're choosing a place to put the trail, and that's when you know, and that's when you have those conversations, and that's when you deal with the outcomes of those conversations. And obviously, Wilmore has to be involved in this. I mean, this isn't a consulting team coming in, you know, this is, you know, I've heard, and honestly, people here tonight, just from the beginning of this meeting, this town, people know each other. And there's a lot of history here, and so again, you know, that's, you're equally a part of that process.
So I guess part of what I'm not fully understanding is, so if we apply for the $4 million, and we get it, and we spend the $400,000 on the design, and both landowners say, we're not giving you right away, what happens to the balance of that $4 million? Is it just go somewhere else, or what happens to that?
So let me see if I understand this right. So if this is awarded, we would then start the process. So if it's awarded, then there would be a consulting team hired. Right away would be a part of that, like, not getting right away, but talking to property owners about what would be required for right away would be a part of that process. This is just design, so I don't know, the 4 million is we haven't asked for that yet. This is the 400,000 for design, the 80,000 commitment for that. The trail itself is estimated to cost 4 million for all of it. That again can vary over the years, but it'll increase over the years. That's what we've just seen when we've seen that. You know, just talking about the sewer project, right? Things aren't getting cheaper. So there is no $4 million yet. This is just for the design phase.
$400,000.
400,000.
So we get 400,000, we spend 80,000, we put it on the shelf, and if both of, landowners say we're not selling, then we're out $80,000 until they decide to do that, and then we do it again?
I don't know, it depends on how you look at it. I don't think we would choose an alignment where there's zero interest, where both property owners say no way.
Well,
I think we'd have to look for another alignment.
That's gonna, it's either gonna be the left or the right.
Possibly, there might be other opportunities if that's the case. If we find out that's the case, we'll regroup, right, and figure out how to make that connection. And again, that may be picking one side or the other, the lesser of the two evils. I don't know what that is, but again, these are all hypotheticals. So it's really difficult to say what would or wouldn't happen. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you wanna have a project that's buildable, that's been designed, that you can go after additional funding to continue the process to build it all the way, if that's the direction you wanna go.
To piggyback on that, I know that, you know, one side of the land is already annexed to development. So it's gonna be developed, and every development plan requires the city to say what development plan we're okay with. And we've been dialoguing with that landowner a good bit, and there's conservation easement, but it doesn't seem like there's enough actual easement right along the road. But it seems that that's gonna get developed at some point. The other side of the road, I've heard rumors that at some point, that will change hands in a few years and very possibly develop. And the development requires the city to say what goes there and whether a trail would go there. And if the final design is already there when land sells, that impacts that a trail will be there.
So
I don't know if I put it to a question. And then the add-on question to that too is, what are the benefits to landowners? When we talk to landowners, what do they get out of it?
So I think there's two things here, and what you're talking about is so we do this a lot in Fayette, and in Jasper County, Nicholas as well. Depends on your planning and zoning regulations, but in Fayette County, we have a larger bike and pedestrian master plan and trail system and network identified. And when development plans come in, we ask for easements, construction easements. Sometimes we require that the portion of the trail be built or some connectivity be built within that development. I'm not sure if that's the case in Jasmine County. I'm not
Well,
sure what you
for
legally can ask
Wilmore,
for in Wilmore. So
When
again,
we annex, we
it-
have
it-
to say yes to what that plan is. So what I'm saying is Wilmore would have the power to say we want a trail here if that farm turned into a development. I'm just kind of stating that.
possibly, yes.
When we talk to landowners, what do they get out of it? Are we paying them something, or does it, or is the government?
It just depends on, you know, those are very,
Normally, it's
very
an
different.
offer to purchase the easement. It's not like they just give it to us for free unless they want to.
I mean, most of the time, we just get easements as a part of the development plan. It's kinda like when you do road improvements. I don't know if y'all do road improvements as part of your development.
Does the
Developer
homeowner
comes
get,
in.
does the property owner get something in return, like sell it for a certain amount?
So what you're talking about is development, not property ownership. Like, so when a development plan comes in,
I'm
they may
sorry,
or may not be the
I
property
jumped
owner
topics. Let's say the
there.
farm said, fine, we'll give you, the farm that's currently there, said, we'll give you, we are willing to talk about easements.
Yeah, they would be paid for those easements.
Okay.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
But could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Follow up. I'm the city attorney. Assuming, just for the sake of argument, that one or more of the landowners refuse to even sell the easement, is this something you all will go to court through eminent domain and try to take, or does it simply stop the project?
So, first answer is that will probably happen, because it happens on all projects. There ends up being a bump in the road, right? No, we do not. That's not what we do with DMPO. We do planning and funding. Again, that becomes a local or a state thing. The state is willing to do it. That's what they did for the T. It was part of that went to court. It's not uncommon for the state to do that. It's very uncommon for local municipalities to do it. We don't do it in Fayette County. And again, you keep moving. These things take a lot of time, and so it's very likely that may or may not occur, you know, yeah. Oh, economics, you wanna talk about economics. So, you know, I don't know how familiar you, I mean, it looks like a lot of folks in the room have been on trails, have been places. It varies from place to place what you see, but on Legacy Trail, we see around 160, 200,000 trips a year. And it doesn't really go anywhere. It goes to the horse park and into our town. But if each person spends $10, that's $2 million, and it's tourism dollars. And so what we generally talk about is the tourism impacts. I mean, look, it's a wonderful quality of life thing. It's wonderful to bring businesses and people to your community. You know, Wilmore, Jasmine County both have their own economies, but they're also bedroom communities to some surrounding areas, Richmond, city of Lexington. And people live in these places because they want certain things. You know, Wilmore has a smaller town feel. Maybe they love the people here, maybe they're fond of Asbury, maybe they're fond of Mayor Rainwater. But the point being is it is a quality of life thing, but in the end, anywhere that these trails get built in the US, there are huge economic impacts. Tourism dollars are the best dollars you can get because you don't have to add a school, you don't have to add a bunch of infrastructure to serve a home and extra development. It's people just coming into your town and spending money and then they leave. So really, they haven't really done anything. Maybe they flush a toilet or drink some water, but that's about it, right? And so I think that's the important thing to note about this. You know, you all are adjacent to the Palisades. There's all kinds of different folks that use these trails. My wife and I, and all throughout my life, I've gone to different places and ridden these trails, camped along the way, stayed in bread and breakfast, stayed in hotels, because it's a wonderful weekend getaway or sometimes a week-long trip. But there's also the folks that are what we kind of the roadies, the folks that really get out on the roads. And in central Kentucky, you know, people love Lexington, Bourbon County, even some of some of Jessamine County, but what they really love are the climbs. And people come out here to climb these roads because there just aren't climbs anywhere else. And so it's a destination, and we've been talking a lot with Visit Lex about how we can build out an economy around the person who wants to come with their family and go on a weekend trip, and the person who wants to come here to train for a cycling event. Those are both very real possibilities. We had a summit in Lexington for the state of Kentucky a couple of years ago, and the folks from, and I'm drawing a blank now, but from the mountain bike capital of the world, which is in Arkansas?
Bentonville.
Yeah, you all know, right? So they basically just made up a story about how it was the greatest place in the world, built one trail, and took that and marketed it and grew it into the mountain biking mecca that it is now. And so, you know, we're trying to do the same thing for Central Kentucky around stuff that we already have. We have a lot of low volume country roads on the north side of Fayette County and southern part of Bourbon County that people really love to come ride on. You can go to Lexington any day of the week and you'll see tons, you'll see a van with about 50 bikes on it. Tourism companies come here and stay in Lexington, in Georgetown, in Midway, and in the surrounding counties, and take people out on the country roads for rides. And we think that there's this wonderful kind of mecca of cycling for the roadie already here, and so we want to attract more of that. You know, the Horsey 100, people come from all over the world for that every year to ride, a century ride in Fayette and in Bourbon County, and we think that can only grow. You know, we're looking in Fayette County to connect to the east, to Winchester. The US 2939 trail is a piece of this that connects over to your bypass, which has a shared use path adjacent to that. So the connectivity into Nicholasville and into Wilmore is amazing, and it offers people options when they use this regional trail system that will extend from Georgetown to Midway. We're looking to go in Fayette County, we're looking to go to the west into Midway, we're going to go into the east into Clark County, and we're almost, actually when the US 60 and Fayette County project is complete, we'll almost be to the Clark County line. And we're really trying to extend that trail. The Big Sandy line used to run from Ashland all the way to Lexington. And so we're trying to pick up pieces of that all along the way and reconnect with that rail trail, but also look at other opportunities. And so we've had to kind of go offline and do some different things. But the point is that this is a piece, and a kind of a dead end piece because of the giant canyon, right? And so this would be a destination, is the way I see it. It's perfectly positioned to be an overnight destination for folks, especially people who are doing a 40 or 50 mile ride. And that sounds like a lot, but for, you know, you spend your time, you take your time all day, that's very realistic that someone can start in Georgetown and come here, stay the night, and go back.
With the potential to continue further to High Bridge someday?
You never know, right? I mean, we're starting to hear from from Madison County. They're starting to look at how can they go from their city out and eventually connect into Fayette County and surrounding areas as well.
Other questions?
I don't have a question, but for those of you that don't know, I know most of the people in here, but my name is David Ryle. I'm on the Trails Committee with Andy and Brad and Becca and Amy, and 100% support trails. I appreciate the long time you've talked with me on the phone before Christmas. I love these TAP grants. Tried to get a TAP grant for the Wilmore sidewalk, and Scott said that was not an option. But I have some of the same questions Jim has. So if I could try to boil this down, and if I'm wrong, somebody straighten me out. We spent $100,000 to do a feasibility study. Somebody did, using our tax dollars. We're now not going to follow that and spend another $400,000 to do a design of a trail that will cost, in today's dollars, $4 million, that we project won't be built for 10 or 15 or 20 years, is what Scott suggested to me. When we have some major issues, water quality, playground upgrades, I could go on and on. finishing the sidewalk project that we started that I think people are happy about. But that's the first phase of a project that would end if we decide to apply for these monies. So as Jim said, we would develop a plan at the cost of $400,000 that we would all be paying for. Only 80 would be local dollars, but the 320 came from us too, right? I mean, we all paid into those taxes. So it's all our money to put a plan on a shelf and forego other projects that are needing our attention. I want this trail, I was gonna say as much as Andy, but I don't think that's humanly possible. The hours that Andy and I have communicated the last several days have been fun, and we've looked at a zillion different options, but given the challenges that the city faces, and we talk as though these are unknown homeowners, landowners. These landowners have been in court with us for years. They have told us there is no way a trail is going down their property. Yes, if they ever want a development, then we've got a little thumb we can put on them and cause them, we hope, to give us an easement for the trail.
I think the big thumb.
A big thumb, like we have a big thumb. But I think until we have some notion that we can use that big thumb, we're spending money that we don't have to develop a project that we can't do. And again, I'm on the trail committee. I want this to happen. I'm just trying to imagine how wise it is to spend money for a project that we don't think we can do in the short term.
Regarding the money, it doesn't cost to apply, it costs if we then get approved. At that point, the local government is on tap for $80,000. I don't know if we've done a direct ask to the county, whether they're willing to assist with some of that. I'm committed to raising $15,000 to $20,000 by the time it's needed in order to get that match. So I really believe the city, if the county was willing to give $20,000, the city would be on it for $40,000. So that's a different number, and $40,000 in the scope of our budget is pretty small. The city last year raised $50,000 for solar panels and trees. We've got a community that cares about environmental issues. And I believe that could be raised to see that as only $40,000. And we only need to say yes to it if we get approved. If we actually
Is the city obligated to say yes if they get approved?
No.
So the application could be made on the 19th of January. The city could then change its mind, get approved, and turn the project down and not cost the city anything.
You can, I mean.
Doesn't that put a little black mark after our name?
And I do want to make the point that you mentioned the 80-20 match, and you're right, it is our tax dollars, that other 80%. But guess what? That's getting spent no matter what. So do you want that 80% to come back here?
Dang right.
Or do you want it to listen? There's analogies, I mean, understand that money is there. You paid those tax dollars. And so it's going somewhere. So I mean, the 20%
Can I ask you
is
a
a realistic
question?
question.
How many of you are willing to have an assessment on your property for this $80,000? You're gonna pay for it. You're willing to do that. Did I see a majority? One more time?
I don't understand the question.
What's the
The
question again?
question is an assessment
What does
of
that mean?
$80,000. Well, you would bill them for that as an extra tax to raise those funds.
It's kind of a one-time tax
One-time
from the
tax.
community
Oh, yeah.
The user fee.
that is spread across Wilmore.
Yeah.
A one-time tax.
Well, I mean,
$80,000
you're
is split
volunteering
between
to-
all residents or something, or
Somebody's gotta pay it, I mean, somebody's gotta pay it. There ain't no free samples, I'm sorry. Well, thank you, I mean, that was encouraging.
It appears to me that most everybody is supportive of the idea of the project. But the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the fact that whichever side of the road you go on, you have to go through an approximately 200-acre farm. There's no way around it. And both of them, one of the landowners, we've been in litigation almost continuously since 1998. And there is no chance in 1,000 lifetimes unless we are ready to adopt a new development plan for his farm. There is no way he's ever gonna consent. There's not a chance. I would bet my life on it. The other side of the road, we have not been in litigation with, but that is a generationally
Yes, we
owned
have.
farm.
Yeah, we have.
You had to testify, Scott. And I did.
Yeah, but it wasn't
Oh,
litigation.
That wasn't litigation,
That
man.
wasn't litigation with the city, but it was,
Right.
but in any event, but that has been a family farm for generations, and they have let the city know indirectly that they are not at all interested. Now, possibly if we are ready to develop that farm, and they are ready to develop that farm, but I think the proper thing to do, we have from now till January the 19th. We need to designate somebody to go up and down the road and find out what kind of reception this project is gonna receive. And if the state is not willing to, file eminent domain actions, I assume this would qualify. Eminent domain's fairly broad. I certainly don't think the city ought to do it. But, I mean, and as I understand it, we right now don't know which side of the road we're gonna proceed on. So we could spend $400,000 of some taxpayers' money to get an approval or a diagram design, and then find out, well, we can get the easements on the other side of the road, but we can't get the easements on this side of the road. And that design, I am guessing, would be completely worthless.
It wouldn't be, you're only talking about a quarter of, you're talking about 25% of the trail is that section, that's the one phase of the trail,
But
there's
it's
4
the
phases
connector.
of the trails. It is.
Otherwise, we have a
but
1 mile trail
We're not
that
redesigning
goes
the
where it
entire
goes.
project,
Better than nothing.
if that doesn't work out.
You already have
We're
that.
waiting until it does work.
You already
out.
have a trail too. like you
We
want.
could get the trade plan.
I can tell you in 1,000
Which is a
scenarios, we
little-
always end up with a connected trail. That's the one thing that we've come out with every time, is we've come out with connected trails in the end. And it takes time, and it takes negotiations, and it sounds to me like, and shouldn't be up here advocating for this. I'm not trying to advocate for this. I'm here to answer questions about the funding, the technicalities of it, but I can tell you this. It sounds like you got a negotiating tool with a developer that you've been in litigation with for a long time. I don't know the ins and outs of what you all been going through with that person, but it sounds like that there's headbutting going on, and there could be an opportunity to find some middle ground. Maybe there's not, I don't know. But the point is that I'm here today to say, the MPO is going through a transportation planning process, this trail's identified in that process. We are looking to see if you wanna move to the next phase of that trail. Questions related to this type of stuff, I can tell you that I've been through in my career, this type of meeting, these types of things, and in the end, they get built.
Yep.
It just takes time. And you have all these different outcomes. You have all these different changes that happen along the way. Some good, some bad, some more challenging than others, some opportunities. And, we're going to continue to try to move this trail forwards from a regional perspective in Fayette and Gentleman County. If this piece doesn't get completed for 50 years, then that's what happens. But if you move this forward, it will continue to move forwards. If you choose to set the design on the shelf and never go after funding, that's exactly what it'll do. If you choose to move it forwards, we will help you move it forwards. That's what we can do. We can identify funding, we can help you through the processes, and we can get you there. But that's what I'm here to help with and to talk through, but the ins and outs of those little micro details, you know, we flush those out over time. It takes, you know, going through the process to get there, but I can tell you, we get there.
I think it's also important to note that we've not been in conflict as much with the farm owners on the side that the path is currently on and would be preferred on. We've been in conflict with the children. The children do not live on the property, they do not own the property. We don't know what they're going to do with the property when the actual owners are ready to move on from that property, which is likely 5 to 10 years. In fact, we've got a person in the room that rents the house out there. And, yeah. Other questions?
We need to make sure the council's through, and then we'll see if we forward.
Is it open to, are there public comments that can be made?
Well,
or-
we're gonna leave it to the council at this point. Any from the council? Okay. There's 100 people in the room, so they're gonna be 3 minutes. We'll start in the back. I saw that hand first.
Yeah, I served on the Metropolitan Planning and Pedestrian Subcommittee. Kenzie Gleason, she's walked the streets of Wilmore, looking at sidewalks with us, and this is not a new project at all. You know, 20 years ago, Margaret Morgan, our former executive director of the Wilmore Community Development Board, was really behind us and would do almost anything to see this connection made. But I think there's opportunity here. Wilmore citizens are very patient people. Very patient people. We'd certainly like to see this thing move forward. Not only a dream of many people here tonight, but I know for sure that council persons will do the right thing.
Thank you. I had a hand over here next. This is,
Hi, I'm Katie Batesy. My husband's been on council for many years, and I never come to meetings because I like to keep our marriage happy. But I just want to say that I feel like I've really struggled in the past 10 years or so about what the purpose of government is. And I feel like the purpose of government is to protect people. So we have put a lot of money in this city into fire and police, but it's also to promote the common good. And I work at Markey Cancer Center. I don't speak on their behalf, but good health is hard to come by if you don't have a living wage. If you can't afford to go to the Asbury Sunbury Gym, if you're blocked from walking around the Asbury track, if you have to depend on maybe you have a sidewalk, maybe you don't. We should be fighting for access, ready access, the fast and cheap option for our citizens to be able to walk within, you know, the research says that every $1 you put into a trail is $3 you save on medical costs. There are 13 cancers that are caused by obesity. We need to be about making this the cheap and easy option. And doing that is about putting a trail within a certain radius of your home that you don't have to worry about your safety or your kids' safety. So, that's it.
I got something.
okay, Devin, you were next.
Well, first up, I want to compliment the good and honorable Councilman Boo, and just say wholeheartedly, I am passionately for this, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, because I see my grandchildren using that trail to get to school. But the question was, imagine, right? Imagine leaving Wilmore. And I don't need to imagine the opposite. I lived in Dunedin, Florida, on a rail trail that opened when I was there. And we saw probably 6 businesses start after people started pedaling in to this little nowhere town that was on the rail. And it was the terminus of that rail. It was mind-blowing how it transformed the commercial community and the energy for the community. That was Dunedin, Florida. Then we moved to Boston. And in the other Lexington, in Boston, we lived on the Minuteman Trail, which is another rail bed that people pedaled miles on and stopped right at my favorite coffee house and spent money all through the little town center for lunch and drinks and, of course, coffee. It was a whole community from MIT, Harvard Medical. They would come in droves. And that would happen here. UK and whoever would be pedaling to this town to spend money. Then, of course, imagine my granddaughter, my daughter, my great-grandchildren pedaling out of Wilmore safely. I'm for this, whether it's today or tomorrow. And I think we shouldn't be penny wise now and pound foolish. We should look to the future and make it this a possibility, because it's gonna transform Wilmore in a good way.
I think Jimmy was next.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like what David Rowell had to say. I'm tired of paying taxes for stuff I don't get use of. I understand we need this. It would be great. He's talking about safety. You got people riding on the road right now that won't get out of the way. They stay right in the middle of the road, okay? To me, you gotta start doing safety right off the bat, okay? Tired of all these people talking about safety and then they go out here and do whatever they want. I've seen it, I've been on it, and it's just, you know, there's other projects that's gotta be going on, like David Rowell said. It's more important to me, pay my taxes on sewer lines, upgrading the water, stuff like that, okay? I understand that, I'm all for you, I'm all for it. But, to me, it looks like you're gonna do this, and you try to ask the city for money, you'd already have your ducks in a row and find out whether you're gonna get the easement or not. I'm like what Jim said, you're paying money, you don't even know whether you're gonna be able to get the easements or not. And that's the way I feel about it. I mean, you know, we're paying for a splash pad. I don't think that's necessary, to me, but it is to some, and I'm glad they're getting it. But, just getting taxes stuff, just, when I was a little young, of course, that's been a long time ago, you rode a bike, you got your butt out of the road, okay? And there's a couple around here that rides up 68 around the curve, that will, and Bethel, and will not get out of the way. They ride the center line.
Yeah.
And you talk about that safety, and I understand what you're talking about, your kids riding to school. I think that's great, but I think you ought to get your ducks in a row before you start asking for money.
I'm not asking for money.
Scott is just a messenger and a good one. Please do not, this is not Scott's project. This is Wilmore's project. Either way, he is a messenger. So, Scott, thank you again for coming tonight and being willing to.
Yeah, like I said, that's what we're here to do. We're
We've
just
spent
trying
a
to
lot
answer
of,
questions
lot
best
of
we
time
can.
and drank a little coffee together.
That wasn't directly attributed to, just for the.
Okay, I missed two next, I guess.
First off, I just want to appreciate the fact that y'all are always considering how you spend our taxpayer dollars and stand fairly conservatively on making sure that our taxpayer dollars go to important things that help make our community better. I know that it's a struggle to think of this giant project with all this money, with a lot of unknowns. Having lived in the grant world, one thing I can attest to what Scott's saying, that this is kind of the next step, and even if there's a piece that has to change down the road, there are still ways to help keep moving this project forward. So say, you know, it's gonna take a generation before we can get the easement on either side, we could still have a path that helps move the project forward, right? So we could have safe bike path for a good portion of Wilmore that we can use, and eventually, we will get a connection. It just might take a while, but all that to say that, you know, having the ability to have a design allows you to leverage so much more money that, again, we pay in taxes federally, state, that could then come back home to Wilmore.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would love to see personally more of my taxpayer dollars come back home to Wilmore. But in order to do that, you have to have a design. And so, and I think the other thing too is, we don't know when the next TAP grant would come open, right? And there's no guarantee of that funding coming down at least next year. You know, it's been a couple of years, so that's the other piece is moving now. It might be the best time to do that. So, sorry, I think I've hit my limit.
I'm an epileptic and I can't drive. I've been in Wilmore since 1996. I'm very for sidewalks. Short and sweet.
My name is Becca Burton, and I am an economic developer. I've been an economic developer at the state, at the Cabinet for Economic Development, then was headhunted to work at University of Kentucky, and then now I do development nationwide. And I understand, Mr. Jimmy, I get your point on you want something that your tax dollars are gonna go for you and to serve you as an individual, which makes sense. That's not an unreasonable request. Same thing for those of us that could utilize the trail in our daily walks of life. Also, looking at economic development for our community, I think our community has come out at different points in times to show that we don't necessarily want a large corporation to come here and build a giant building or build storage units that are gonna have 10 people working there at low-wage jobs. More and more businesses across our nation are moving to remote workers. And those businesses, when they're looking at where they locate their headquarters, they're looking for metropolitan areas like Lexington, like Louisville, but they're also looking at the surrounding veteran communities, which we are. Love it or hate it, that's what Wilmore is. And the one piece that they're really looking at, and they're scoring, they have Excel sheet after Excel sheet with ratings on how walkable and how livable a community is and how good the quality of life is for those residents. And so it doesn't mean, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Real, about you really want the trail to happen, but what about this? We shouldn't, as citizens, expect that our tax dollars can only go towards one project. We shouldn't expect that our tax dollars can only be designated to this tiny pile of a new playground. I'm passionate about playgrounds because that's the current walk of life that I'm in. I'm passionate about community trails because I also would love to be involved in that. And the church teaches us that we are a product of our environment. That's why we tell our kids, go out, surround yourself with good friends, put yourself in good situations, put yourself into good communities. So by building this trail, I understand, Mr. Jim, that it's scary that we don't know what the future holds. But what if John Wesleyan had said the same thing when he got off that train? Or what if the next person that built the city hall, they thought, I don't know if this is the place for it. They were thinking for them, and then they were thinking for future generations. So I don't think that this plan has to, we have to just apply. Who says we're even going to get the grant? Which fingers crossed we would, and I think we have really compelling writers to get that grant to make a great story as to why that trail belongs here. But putting our funds and being fiscally responsible with the funds that we already have and the places and spaces that we allocate those funds, it doesn't have to go to just one project. It can be spread out. And it can go towards the future here, and then also evaluating the citizens and seeing what other citizens need that they might not use that trail. But you never know. You might love biking on a trail, but it's not for everybody. But we're not building things just for one person or one sector or one age group of our community. It has to be built, and our decisions at council have to be made for all citizens and allocating all of our funds into different pockets, not just making us choose one project, because you'll have tons of different ideas about what project we should go towards based on whatever walks of life we are in. Thank you.
Well, I think if we listen to the rest of the 100, we have the same message.
I move that we submit a TAP grant for the final design of the Kentucky 29 Trail by the January 19th deadline.
Second.
I would like to urge those folks that's raised those hands to leave your name tonight. And I'm just gonna let Andy be the keeper of that. And how much money can we raise? And how much can we bring from other sources to meet that? Because I can assure you, I sign every check that goes out of the city of Wilmore. And I sign every purchase order that goes out of the city of Wilmore. And I can assure you, there's not $80,000 surplus anywhere, nor will there be. You will take that out of some other fund to cover that if you don't raise that. So I'm gonna encourage you, Andy, you stepped up, I'm gonna ask you to keep stepping. You've got contacts and you've got people passionate. Bring that number to about 40 that you said. We raised, that more than that for solar panels to lower the cost of utilities on this building. Now that's how much people care about Wilmore, or environment, or energy, or something. We care, we know we care.
It was good to, I've learned a little bit from Scott as far as when funds are needed, and they're needed in usually like 6 payments. And so, doesn't all have to come in July. It could be raising by the end of the year of 2026.
And I also know that,
The county,
yeah, I'll take care of the county, but I also know that we're gonna have to pay up front. So as we get what checked off, we gotta start writing checks. So there's gotta be that 320 appropriated some way to pay that, and you do get reimbursed. But, so anyway, we have a motion and a second.
I do have a question. In light of this motion, how long does the whole process take?
Use your mic.
Oh, sorry, I have a cold, I don't know if it's gonna work. So in light of all of this and the motion, how long does the whole process of the grant?
How long till they, so we don't know for sure.
Okay.
Generally, the state announces awards sometime in the spring or early summer, so that people can be prepared for the next fiscal year budget, which will be July 1. Are you all on July 1? So they try to get them out by then. We've seen times when they didn't announce for an entire year. You know, they were pretty steadily doing TAP applications annually for a long time. And for whatever reason, they hadn't for a few years. And so, you know, there are some unknowns, but in general, that's normally the process. Is that the applications come in, they announce sometime.
was that the timeline you were asking for, or you were also asking, like, at what point do we then need to decide to spend more money?
But, like, if it's true, if you guys really do wanna put, you know, taxes on and pay for this, you know, we would like to take it out of the next budget, not this one. So I'm just kinda curious, like, how long we have until we have to pay.
Yeah, so generally there's the award, and then sometimes it takes a while to even get that funding into the process, and Greg, you've been involved in these, so it varies, you've seen it vary too, but it varies when that happens. And then once you get that notice to proceed, because there's other steps to go through, and it could easily be early 27 before we even start the process, or you guys, I mean, we'll help you with this. If it's awarded, soliciting a consulting team for the design of the project. So that would give you 27, probably part of 28 if that were the case. I would anticipate 6 months to a year for the design of the project, given the scope that we've talked about. There's a survey that'll have to be done too. So I mean, there's just some things that can push that out. So it's possible that you could even maybe try to spread that over 2 years if we, you know, worked it out that way. But
So do we have to pay the 80,000 up front?
no, so the way the reimbursement works is that you are billed directly from the consultant, you pay those bills, and then the state reimburses you that 80%. It's similar to, I think, other grants that you all have done. I know that is for community block grants, most grants are that way.
So the earliest might be, say, July, we do the first, we're required to do the, it's not on this current budget, it would be for the next budget, 26, 27. I thought I was loud enough for that, with that.
Why we bought them?
It's on.
It's on. It is on.
It's
Oh,
on.
wow.
It's red.
It's definitely not this budget year that it would be required, it would be the next budget year, and at the earliest July, and what he's saying is we might have to pay, say, 100,000 by August, but then we get reimbursed 80,000. So only 20,000 actually went out, it was in that August season, and then more as it plays out over the year.
I mean, like I said, you know, it could very be likely that we could try to spread this over 2 years if it worked out that way, right? Like FY '27 is what we're talking about, right? So FY '27 starts July 1, if the project doesn't begin until January and it's 6 or 8 months, you know, there could be a portion of that would be FY '28, right? If that's really the desire, we might even be able to try to work that out with the state even and say, hey, trying to spread this over 2 budget years, how can we make that happen? So I mean, you know, I think if that's what you're kind of getting towards, I think that's a possibility. I mean, you know, again, once they make the award, they want to see these projects move. They get pressure from the federal government to spend money, so they want to see it move. But how long it takes varies, and so, you know, that's not as big a stickler as start billing to it and then move, right? And so, you know, I think that could be a possibility if we were to work it out that way.
And the 80,000 is a guesstimate. I mean, we're assuming that, if we're gonna put this out to bid, we assume that that bid will be $400,000 or less.
Correct, yes.
It might be 500,000, it might be 300,000. Whatever that is, we're in for 20% of that.
Yeah.
So it could be 60,000, it could be 100,000, or it could be 80.
Well, so it won't be more than 400,000, because if the grant's awarded at 400,000, that's what you're awarded. Now, we have, on some occasions, had to, especially for construction, had to go back and get more money. Actually, we do that all the time, because it's just how it goes. And, we would file a TAP application or some other, depending on what we're going after financially. They like to award those too, because the project's moving and it's going to be completed or something of that nature. So, if it were to exceed that, I think we would put it back out again, or we would shave something off or do something to make it fit within that budget. So 400 should be the maximum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you feel the recommendation will follow the feasibility study?
For the most part, yes, but I think we need to have those conversations. I mean, I think.
I guess just for the record,
Yeah.
the italicized, page 5, since the existing facilities are currently located on the east side of US 68 and Kentucky 29, the project team strongly recommends having facilities be constructed on the east side.
They do. But now let's take that a step further, okay? If we have to
That's
go
what
to
we
the-
paid 100,000 for.
If we have to go to the other side of the road, we use the engineering best practices to do that safely.
And you're gonna cross a 45, 55 mile an hour road 2 times.
At the intersection,
There is
We
no
would change the
intersection.
controls. We would cross that, like, so again, we're getting into design.
I'm
We will
just
not cross the
saying,
road outside
are
of the
you
intersection.
following this recommendation?
Yes, we will, and we will look to, if we need to go to the other side of the road, we will have the consulting team use the best practices for safety to design that crossing for the given condition of the roadway. Speed, volume, that's every transportation design is based around all kinds of things, sight distances, speeds and volumes of the roadway, all these things, and there's documents that essentially protect the engineers from lawsuits that say, here's how you do that, and those are tested over time to ensure safety. I say we probably do it at the intersection because we probably would. We'd probably do it at the T, right? For the first crossing, if that's what we have to do. The second one, we don't know yet, right? But there might, and I even mentioned to Andy, you know, there might be opportunities for other things that come along with this. Intersection improvements that you all may not be on the hook for, that could help fund part of this project. Again, we don't know until we design the project out and say, are there other pots of money that might be even available for road improvements that can help with the trail improvements? So again, this first piece is getting it designed and saying, the city of Wilmore is going to move this forward at this point, and try to continue to move it forward, right? That may, you know, again, that may change next year, or the year after, it might take a few years, whatever, or it might accelerate. You just, you know, you really don't know where the funding opportunities are. I think I mentioned to you, you know, when there's changes in administration at both the state and the federal level, things happen that we can't foresee, and then you gotta be ready to pounce, and it can be, you know, coming out of a recession was one time we got a bunch of money for trails, and they wanted all these shovel-ready projects, and people who had projects that were shovel-ready got money, and most of the time they got that money at zero match, right? And so is that gonna happen? I don't know, but it happened in the past, right? We have a trail project in Fayette County that we've been trying to get for years, and we had a property owner that was never going to give the right-of-way. This is on Richmond Road, 8th and Spoonesboro, from Squires Road all the way out. And we didn't move forward with that trail because our local government's not willing to condemn property. And so we just put it on a shelf and waited. The Highway Safety Improvement Program identified that corridor as a dangerous corridor based on data. There's collisions that kill people on that roadway. People are getting hit. We're gonna change that. HSIP funds come at zero match. So now we're doing a whole bunch of roadway improvements that include a trail as well, and they got that property right away to get that project through. So again, we didn't know that was coming. It came to us, but we had it ready to go, and we knew we wanted to do that project. So you don't know what's gonna come down the pipeline.
I think also to your point, because your main point is the feasibility says it should be on this side of the road. And I think from conversations with Scott is, that's what the feasibility study is saying is the easiest, most natural way. However, what is the most practical or actual way to get there might end up being going across the road, because
That's where we're in litigation. That is not practical.
who has been negotiating with us,
Not now.
they want to strike a deal with us. And I know we don't like talking
Heard
with
that
that
29 years.
I know that we all prefer the other side, but I think Scott said it well enough, but just, we don't have to
I
follow
mean,
it
this
exactly.
whole issue comes down to Jen's question. What are we gonna design? And where is it gonna run? Is it gonna be a parallel or even down Drake Lane and behind the property? We don't know that, I know at this point.
At this process, we're gonna pick a side, and that's gonna be through talking to the property owners. And we're gonna look at what is the best path forward, and that's gonna involve you
Yeah.
in this community, and looking towards that. Look, when we were trying to build the right rail trail, everybody said, no, then they built gates in their backyards, and then people down the road were like, when's the trail coming? Opinions shift, and people change. I mean, does everybody in here have the same opinion about things their entire life? Maybe some of us, but not many of us. So, again, that's why, you know, it's almost like I'm arguing hypothetical. We're going to do, we're gonna follow the best practice for how we've done these things in the past, and you work with the city of Wilmore and try to move, you know, try to continue that project forward. So the answer to that question is that will be a part of the process, and there will be an alignment chosen as a part of this process. There has to be.
And phase one of this segment of the policy was to do the part that we're not gonna do.
Well,
And
it may be
again,
that
that's
we
your
end up on that side of the
recommendation.
road. It may be that flushes out as the best option. If, let's, another hypothetical, let's say all things equal, neither are gonna let us do it. Then we go down the side that's the easiest and the safest, and similar to what happened in Fayette County someday. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we've had property owners that say never, and at some point, something changes. You know, so.
And again, to your point, feasibility study says phase one, it starts at the Y, goes this direction, but what he's saying is we could switch that around, phase one starts in Wilmore.
I guess my point is, there's $100,000 that we're totally disregarding. I'm not just saying that's the fact, and I don't wanna spend $400,000 of taxpayers' dollars, and you can't get there. And it's put on a shelf, but I'm for the trail. If it's a 3-3 tie, I've already told you where I'm gonna vote. But it has to have a plan that meets those standards and not crisscrossing that road. It's a disaster. I mean, it's one of the most dangerous roads in Jessamine County right now.
Let's fix it.
I'm just gonna leave it alone.
I know.
I'm gonna put that in transportation, so we don't say most dangerous.
That's a
roads.
Buffalo Trail.
I know that's not true.
200 years ago.
I know that's not true. I know the data does not say that's the most dangerous road.
It's the most dangerous
I'm
for
gonna let you
us.
say it.
We drive it.
Right?
Go ask Wesley Village.
Look, 68 Trail crosses all kinds of roads on the way out. People still use it. Legacy Trail crosses all kinds of roads. Citation Boulevard.
But they have a stoplight occasionally.
Absolutely.
If
Best
the first-
practice.
the only one you
Maybe
cross.
we gotta put a stoplight in. The point is that it can be done.
Yeah.
But you
Plus,
said
it's
iron
done all
works.
over the place.
I'm not arguing.
Yeah, I know, I just, you said it was disastrous, and I'm like, well, is it, like, you know.
It's dangerous.
Legacy Trail crosses without a traffic, crosses Ironworks without a traffic light.
No, it crosses all kinds of roads, like traffic signals, yeah.
Without
Yeah, but it crosses at intersections too. I mean, it's just, but Ironworks Pike's an example of a crossing that's unsignalized. There's a 4-lane divided, 55-mile an hour highway. We haven't had any incidents.
I can see bikers doing that, but I don't see moms with strollers wanting them.
You'd be surprised.
I would.
Okay. Why do they complain about 25-mile-an-hour in Wilmore then?
Because that's where their house is.
That's where my house is. Hey, we're getting off course here. We have a motion. David made a motion, Andy second.
Come on, guys.
We've had discussion. Any other discussion by the council?
I have a hard time figuring out how to vote for something that we don't even know how we're gonna pay for. It just seems backwards, and I understand a lot of it is because this whole thing's been rushed. We were told about it at the last meeting. So.
I thought you probably got a fire truck on this grant.
I don't.
We had prices
I mean,
in order.
guys.
So it's hard to vote when it just feels unwise when you like to know where it's coming from exactly. So that's one challenge. The other challenge, I still object to the feasibility study and the $4 million price tag. To me, I've talked to several people that are in the Lexington Cycling Club. I've talked to a lot of people about this project and developers in the private sector. Not a single person thinks that's a reasonable price for what it is. It's a 10-foot wide asphalt road, basically a 1-lane road. And to me, you would never move utilities to put this in. You would just move over far enough away that you're just going next to the utilities. You would not relocate all the gas line, all the water line, just to put in a driveway or a pathway. You would find a way around that. It's a smarter way to do it, just logistically speaking. And the $4 million price is what's causing the $400,000 price, because engineers say, oh, we get 10%. There's no way it should cost $400,000 to engineer 2.5, 3 miles of essentially a road, a 1-lane road. I'm equating it to essentially like a farm road, an asphalt road on a farm, smooth, graded,
Concrete.
No, it's not concrete.
Well, there's stream crossings, there are utility locations, and we do utility locations. And I'm just trying to break this down, but there's a huge survey component that's probably a quarter of that money. It's probably $100,000 worth of survey. And if you can find somebody to survey for $20,000, they're losing money. I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. But if you wanted to respond to that from a funding perspective, you're right. It is at 10% of the predicted total cost. That was done by engineers estimating what right-of-way would possibly be, what utilities would possibly be.
Sure.
And that's how you come with that price tag.
Yeah, I'm not here to debate you.
Yeah, I know. So I just wanted to say that that's where that number comes from. So, and I get it. It sounds like a lot, 'cause it is a lot.
Yeah, because government stuff is 4 times private sector stuff, usually speaking. There's all this extra in there.
Yeah.
That's the way it is, I understand that. So if we have a plan so that we can get the other state money, I understand how that plays to our benefit. I get that.
Sure, yeah.
It's just hard for me to swallow it. I mean, I've talked to people who have developed whole subdivisions, and they've got $100 grand in engineering. I mean, for what they did, and I know what all they did, friends of mine. And so it's just hard to swallow it down and say, oh yeah, we're getting a bargain. Although if we get all the state money and all the money that's not ours back, yeah, we still do win in the end. So I understand how that works. It's just, tonight, we're having to say yes. We don't really know the cost. We don't really know how much it's gonna take. It may be broken up into payments, and we don't really know where it's coming from. So, just trying to be a good steward of what people elected me for. And I'm coming from a genuine mindset, I mean, truly. And so, it isn't easy. This may cause the sidewalk project we started to not happen. As you'd mentioned in other discussions, not tonight, you'd said that Lexington often uses their municipal road aid. And that's the fund that we use to pave our streets, to fix drainage culverts, and we started using it last year to repair sidewalks. We put a lot of money in sidewalks, which is pedestrian pathways as well. But if this coming year, we take this out of that fund, we can't, the fund has what it has in it. So I don't know if the majority of the citizenry would like to do this and get a plan. There's nothing that can be built from this right now. But it would be a start. But no new sidewalks next year, or maybe less. We still have enough in there to do some, but we need to pave a couple streets, and we have those storm gutters that are collapsed and rotting away. And so that was one suggestion of a way to pay for this. But in my mind, I'm voting yes or no on something that I don't understand where the money comes from. That's the difficulty from my perspective.
Yeah. The 80,000 money comes from, or?
Right, but it may not be 80, because if you raise some, and, you know what I mean?
Wait a minute, we had an agreement that you none?
Mayor, have we heard from the county if they're gonna give anything and a number that they've?
They will, but I would rather not repeat a number at this point.
Sure. At least knowing that
I think
there's
that's,
something.
Mr. West would give that number.
I understand.
Other discussion with council? Question? Roll call. Start with your motion makers.
Okay. Councilman Ryle,
Yes.
Councilman Bachi,
Yes.
Councilman Fitch,
I love each one of you, but I've lost everything, and I just can't say yes, knowing that there's not gonna be a future. I don't know, I'm really concerned, and I'll have to say no, and please forgive me.
Councilman Brumfield,
No.
Councilman Metcalf,
No.
Councilperson Moore,
No.
Thank you, council. Thank you, citizens. Okay, we'll take a couple minute recess and then move back to our agenda.
You go up.
Oh, really?
Hey, Brad.
I know, so I finally gave up, and now we got another
Oh,
I got it. I ain't gonna hit it.
We're gonna return to the council.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, like I said,
It's so good to see you, Dr.
I used to have a gavel, took it away from me.
We gotta get that back.
That was Ernie Fletcher's gavel. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all.
We have, ordinance 2025-16. An ordinance amending ordinance 423-94, which means it was passed in 1994, related to the City of Wilmore Code of Ethics, revising the Code of Ethical Conduct applicable to city officers, employees, city agencies, and defining the authority, duties, and responsibilities of the city's ethics board. First reading, Attorney Robert Gully.
Mayor, first off, that will have a new number, it will be a 26 number.
Yeah.
Ms. Back has not provided that to me yet. Evidently, I messed up, I thought I had gotten it to her this morning for dissemination to the council. I apologize. There are two items which we do not need to discuss tonight that you all are going to have input on. And what I would suggest is that I email it to all of you individually tomorrow, outline the two places where we've still got to answer a couple of questions, and put it on for the meetings in February for first and second reading, if that be agreed.
Any other reports of the council meeting?
I have one thing I'd like to bring up. I rarely am on Facebook, but for some reason this week,
I'm surprised.
I run my poker site on Facebook. That's about my only involvement. But for some reason this weekend, I was inundated with misinformation, which is not going to surprise anybody from Facebook, once again about the unsafe water in the city of Wilmore. And I watched as Councilman Metcalf tried to explain the situation, but you are absolutely, it is impossible to do that in that venue. But I would suggest, we had earlier last year, we had a wonderful presentation at a city council meeting by the, water director, I guess he's water director, whatever his title is. And I think if it is possible, the council ought to suggest that the city clerk find a way, somebody's bound to be technologically savvy enough to put a link to that specific meeting on the very opening page of our Facebook or our website, whatever.
Do we have video of water director speaking?
We do.
And
could we edit it to just that?
And if we could do that, and if they'll, I'm convinced much of the Facebook community does not want to know the truth. They, in their heart of hearts, they want Wilmore to be Flint, Michigan too. And they're probably never going to believe the truth, but we ought to at least make a reasonable attempt to educate those that do want to know, because some are, I mean, it's obvious, some are legitimately concerned, and they're concerned about nothing, as we know. That was just my experience, and everything bad on Facebook tends to fester if it's not dealt with in some fashion, and there is no way to do a better explanation of the situation than the council has already got on tape.
Thank you, if you would let us do that.
I'd be happy to post on Facebook to, I was in on that thread and tried to push them to that, but we could post it directly, and we could even see about the newsletter too, and.
Other than the webpage might be the first place.
I'd stay off Facebook. That's my advice. People don't like it when we post things on Facebook when they don't have an account. They get the notion that we don't want to share information with them. But the way to get information is to have a Facebook account that they don't want. That's a minority opinion.
No, I think I'm one. That's what I'm saying. The website. Just put it on the
Yeah,
website.
put it on the website.
Or both.
You need to point people to the website when they've got information.
Well, much of the concerns that I heard were directed back to the federally required letter of, I guess, a year ago. And,
They just got another one this week.
oh, well, then that explains that. I didn't realize it.
James,
came out.
would you mind explaining what the new one was and who got that? I'm sorry.
No, no problem. Yes. Real quick background. EPA 1974 Safe Water Drinking Act, come forward 1991. Then there was the Lead and Copper Act. That's when we started doing our lead and copper testing, to all the way up to 2021. That was when they implemented this part where we have to do a service line inventory. So we had about 3 years to get that done to some degree. At that point, we had to submit that service line inventory to the federal EPA. Part of that requirement was a public notification, which we sent out then last year in November. 2024, in November. That was the first round of then the calls about the lead being in water. It's a wonderful thing. We don't want lead pipes in our system. But with that being mandated, it also comes with mandatory language. Very aggressive. You can't explain it away. You're not allowed to. If you do, you get fined. You have to redo it, send it out again, and then you get smacked on the wrist. Well, we don't want to do that, so we put the mandatory language, and then we try to deal with phone calls and emails and however it goes. So we just sent out the second wave of that. We were able, the first time around, we sent out, because everything was classified pretty much unknown, we sent it to every citizen, so 2,200 people received that to the residents. This year, we had whittled it down to 825. gotten sent out this year. The next thing that we're looking at is November of 2027. That's when we have to submit a plan how we are going to get rid of any lead that we found in our system. So essentially, we got 20 months to work really hard to identify 825 service lines in people's yards. The best way to do that is to dig. You gotta get down to the lines on both sides of every meter to investigate those, fill it back up, to get grass to grow back so that everybody's happy. So we got 20 months to work really hard at getting it. Therefore, when you get to it, and we may have some lead lines out there, when we identify those, the plan at that point would be then, what do we do to get this out? This document is a changing document. They're always changing. The dates kind of are hard dates, but how you test, how you get to it, as far as funding goes, that's still all up in the air. So it's still really just an investigation time at this point, up until 2027, November. So that's our job, Jeff's job. We're working on a plan, how we're gonna get that done. We will be coming back to you to figure out how we're gonna pay to get that done. But it's mandated. We don't have a choice. EPA's having us do that. As far as getting it done, it can be 7 years, it may be 10 years. They would like it to be shorter, but it's gonna take a while to get to that. So, as far as the scare for the citizens, yeah, it sounds really bad. That's why we did add things about phosphate. Okay, what that is phosphate is a chemical we put in the water that adheres to metal. So if you happen to have a piece of lead in your service line, it adheres to that metal so that the water doesn't come in contact with it, so it can't leach out the lead into the water. We've done all the testing since 1991, and they set an action level. The level that you want to have in water is 0. Okay, that's where we're all aiming for, but they gave us a number. We have never gone to that action level or exceeded. Therefore, when we did our testing, we always have gotten reduced. So it started out 40 sites twice a year. We did it long enough that they decided, okay, now you can just do 40 sites once a year. Then they brought us down to 20 sites once a year. And in fact, we have done so well this year where we've done no lead copper testing at all in 2020. So we believe the water is safe coming to your house. It's those lines in the ground that are just unknown. We do not know. So the phosphate. A couple people have asked about phosphate. You take your pop, I'm not condoning pop, I'm not telling you to drink sodas. Look on there, phosphoric acid. We put in our water about 1 part per million. Most of the time it's about a 0.7 part per million. Your soda has 250 parts per million of phosphate. It's what gives it a tang, what gives it a crisp taste. It also keeps the color in there. It also keeps it from any mold growing inside there, which you don't really want in your pop. So we put a very, very small amount because it's just as protection. Can I sit here and absolutely say for 100% that there isn't something going on? No, we've done our testing. We've had a few hits, but it's been way below the action level. So I feel very confident. Same thing that was in the last video. I have kids, I have grandkids, we live here, we drink water. It's federally mandated. EPA's told us to use that language. There's nothing we can do about it. And we are working hard to identify and get rid of those lines. They will be out of the ground eventually.
Are all of the lines you're concerned about on the owner's side of the meter, or are some of them city lines?
Lead lines are usually pipes. They have to be usually 2-inch or less, so that's more residential. So the commercial buildings, usually if they have anything bigger, they didn't make 3-inch lead lines. And usually what it is it's usually close to the meter, and they use it because things aren't lining up. The lead, they could just bend it and get it to stick on, and it can be on either side of the meter. We're gonna be responsible from the main to the meter, but we have to know what's on the other side. And the reason for that is if there was lead over here, even if we replace it, if there was galvanized on the other side, it's gonna need to be replaced. Nobody said who's gonna pay for that and who's gonna make them replace it, but galvanized, what happens if there's lead coming through it, it absorbs the lead and then keeps letting that out over time. So that would also need to be replaced. It's one of the classifications in the service line. That's my nutshell.
On top of that beautiful person and all he knows, he has notified me he's gonna retire. So on top of everything else we're dealing with, but he's not gonna leave us in a lurch. He's gonna stay here till May. Meeting with him a lot, today a couple times. We're trying to learn everything, how to do it, who to do it, and what the transition is. Jeff and him are working together with Kentucky Rural Water to help us address these issues of inventory. He gave me this sheet tonight of 7 priorities, talk about strategic plans. Some of those, I've already talked to the engineer and their number's like 20 million. So, if we do everything that needs to be done. And that's just one of those items on there. So we've got millions of dollars of needs in water and sewer alone, to address here. What Wilmore has done is what every other city has done. It bought a aging system from Asbury College that most of that has been replaced. They've replaced it. And as this town has come on, anything from 1988, we're okay on. But everything that was, if I'm wrong, correct.
No, the 88 was the lead ban. So
But
anything after
everything
that.
prior to 1988 raises question marks. So a street like Pickett, street like Lowry, street like Lexington Avenue, on and on and on, is where all that work is going to go. We have a 1982 water plant. Hal Rogers dedicated. There's no question we're gonna have to do something in the next years. We have a reservoir that causes us some issues. There's no question, we have to do something. So I just almost cry when James tells me he's leaving, for how much he has given to us this last year, and how dear those 2 men there, that one in the middle, he left us, but he's still here tonight. But there's a lot of knowledge right there. There's 29 years. You just don't replace that with who we're gonna hire to come in and do that. So, anyway, just pray for our transition. And James, thank you for a hard year of your life given to us.
Very well.
When 50 hurt. All right, anything else?
All hearts clear, I believe
Hit the longest meeting mark.
Well, for a while, at least in the last